There's been some confusion lately about the synthetic. I saw a comment on Retire on Dividend site, and the commenter was basically saying, why do we even need the synthetic? I don't get it, or something to that extent. So I decided to make a video on it, and it is kind of a convoluted subject. It's not super easy to understand because when you look at covered calls, you have to understand what you're doing when you're selling a call. And I think everyone understands how a covered call works. The thing is, the covered call doesn't exist in isolation. The only way you're going to sell a covered call is if you own the stock or the synthetic. You have to have the asset to sell the call on. Otherwise, you'd be naked. And like I've said a million times, I don't think Warren Buffett sells naked calls. I may be wrong, but pretty sure. I don't even think the bank would let him. It's just too risky. So here's the analogy I came up with. So I'm going to, and of course none of this stuff is true. I'm just making up stuff. But I'm going to use an analogy, and I will put my dad in the story because he was in the story last night. His name's Papa Convexity. So let's say that Papa Convexity has a hardware store, and he's had it here in Austin for years. Then let's say around the year 2000, I decide I want to open a taco truck. Get into the hospitality business, taco truck business. So first thing I'd have to do is I'd have to go to the bank. All right. Well, I get to the bank and they won't loan me the freaking money for it. And it's because my business plan doesn't look like I'm going to have enough business to support it. So then the banker said, though, if you could put this taco stand in your dad's hardware store parking lot, if he would agree to that, we'd be able to give you the loan because that would ensure there's enough business for your taco stand, and okay, so I went and talked to Papa Convexity, just like I always do whenever I have a money problem. But I talked to him and I said, hey, let's put this taco stand up here. And yeah, and he agreed to it. It's going to be good for his hardware store too. It's going to be good for both of us. That's what we're hoping. So it's around the year 2000. And let's make the math kind of simple on this, but I want to make it where it means something. Let's say that Dad's hardware store is worth about $1.5 million. And let's say that out of that $1.5 million, he gets about 7 or 8% annualized. CAGR, compound annual growth. Or 7, 8, 10%, something like that. Exactly what the market gets. So right now, if you bought 100 shares of the NDX index, it would cost you $1.5 million. So you could have 100 shares of the NDX index and write a put on it or write calls or do whatever, write some kind of option on it. But you have to own the index to do that. And you, for sure, with the calls, not with the puts. Forget about the puts. But so $1.5 million investment that returns 7 to 10% a year is like somebody it's like somebody owning stock in an index. So let's say my taco stand, on the other hand, is about a 20th of the size. Let's say it cost $100,000, but I make 50 to 60 on it. So I'm making 50 or 60% yield on my taco stand. So the taco stand is going to represent the covered call portion of it, the short call portion of it, and the hardware store is going to be the equity portion, or the same thing as the synthetic. What's that doing for us? So those numbers should work out right. So between Dad and I, he should make about $100,000 on his $1.5 million investment, and I should make 50 to 60 on my investment. So things are rolling along great. We go about 5 years. I've got my bank loan paid back by now. They're just rolling along great. But then the housing crisis hit. So guess what? Papa Convexity has a adjustable rate mortgage somehow on his hardware store. I don't even think they'll give you adjustable rate mortgages on a business, but let's just say he did. So he got caught up and also the economy went bad at the same time. So all of a sudden, we're looking at 2008, and he's not making money anymore. He's looking at, in fact, he lost money last year. And so he's looking at having to close down the hardware store. Of course, if he does that, the taco stand's also out of business. So of course, Dad and I talk, and I give him some money. I give him part of the $60,000 a year I'm making. I give half of that yield to him just to keep him in business. So we stay in business another year because You know, there's nothing wrong with my taco stand. Tacos are good, but there's a macroeconomic factor affecting the bigger picture, which is the hardware store. So in this case, we're going to need to take money from the taco stand, which is the covered call or the yielding strategy, and we're going to need to put it into the hardware store. So that's the same thing as Jay Pestruccelli was telling us to do the other night, or telling us you might have to do to ensure. He means to 100% ensure from blowing up. Just reinvest the dividends, anyway, or at least a portion of them. So that's the analogy. So me giving money to Dad, we're taking money from the taco stand to support the hardware store to keep the whole investment going. Like I say, it's not just a covered call by itself. It's a covered call plus the equity investment. So we go along a few years. Things are going great. We're about 2012 or whatever. And Austin's turning into a tech hub. And, you know, everything is going awesome. But what else is going awesome is Amazon starting to deliver everything in the world to someone's house the very next day. That's putting pressure on the hardware store again. That's not good news for the hardware store. No one's going to come buy a hammer, or a lot of people won't, when you can have one shipped to your damn house. So once again, Dad and I have to have a little talk. And again, I'm going to reinvest some of the taco stand money into Dad's investment just to keep the whole thing going. So to me, this is a good analogy for that sometimes, depending on the macroeconomic factors of the bigger investment, which would be represented by the synthetic or the Tesla stock that you have to own to do to do calls. Sometimes something it doesn't mean the strategy's bad, you know, but sometimes given bigger factors, you have to reallocate your assets. It's, you know, portfolio managers do it every quarter. They call it rebalancing, or sometimes every month. So it's not a big deal. It's not bad news. It's kind of bad news, but, you know, I thought this would be a good example to explain why you need a synthetic, or it doesn't have to be synthetic, or why you need to at least have stock before you can sell a call in something. And I wanted to explain how the two things work together, because they're related. They're related to each other, but they aren't exactly the same. So let me know if that analogy helps, and leave me a question if it doesn't, and I appreciate you listening. Have a nice day. Hey guys, Max Convexity here. We got some deer wandering around behind the shot. I thought you guys might be interested. There you go. There he is. Or she is. There she is right there. I wonder if that's Soda Pop. I mentioned in one of my other videos that my favorite deer is named Soda Pop. I gave her a name. Hey, Soda Pop, is that you? Jackson! 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 Back on. Come here. That's Jack's convexity. He's not allowed to chase the deer, but sometimes he still does.